Hi, this is Ian Khan, and welcome to the Undisrupted Summit. In this video, I have a good friend of mine, Sheena, who's a best-selling author. She's here to talk about her two books. One is upcoming, and the one she's written is The Tao of Self-Confidence, a bestseller, national bestseller. Sheena, welcome to the summit.
Hey Ian, thank you so much for having me and super excited to be here today.
So the purpose of the summit is to give nuggets of knowledge to all attendees so that we don't have these really long sessions and videos to but something practical they can watch, act on, and implement right away. Tell us first of all, what is your book about?
Yeah, for sure. So my first book, The Tao of Self-Confidence, A Guide to Moving Beyond Trauma and Awakening the Leader Within, is really about about how you can learn to work through your unresolved trauma to show up as your best self, right? Because a lot of people, they always ask me, how do you build confidence? How do you build confidence? And I can provide 101 ways to do that. But really, what's the most important is, what is that trauma in your life that's really stopping you from moving forward? It could be something from your childhood. It can be something even now. It could even be something from your parents, your grandparents, because intergenerational trauma is prevalent, like especially in Asian culture. We don't talk about our troubles. We usually keep it in, and because of that, it gets passed on. So it's really important to work through those traumas so you can really show up as your best self. And this is a guide to that.
I really like that. What are some of the traumas that you talk about in the book that an everyday person wouldn't think about? They wouldn't think that this thing is trauma, but it's actually part of their identity. It's part of their personality. And I think at many times, trauma has a kind of a connotation to it. People will push it away and say, no, 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 I don't have it. It's not trauma. I'm all good. Help us understand that a little bit. How do you identify something as a trauma that we don't think it is a trauma?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people mistake PTSD as something that happens in the army, right? Because it's pretty prevalent in when if you're in the army, right? We see it in movies and in TV shows, but PTSD can happen to anybody, regardless if they're in the army or not, right? It could be due to unfortunately like a sexual domestic abuse, right? It could be something from our childhood. It could be something as simple as like getting hate comments on Instagram, because that's what happened to me, right? I started getting a lot of hate comments on one post on a 30-second video, and I had PTSD every time the notification came out for a comment because I didn't want to have to read it. And I know a lot of people will tell you, ignore it, ignore the haters. Yes, it is important to ignore them, but we're human. It's going to get to us, of course. So that's one trauma that I think most people think when it comes to PTSD, they think it only happens in the army when it can happen to everyday people, right? Regardless
Yeah,
of the situation.
yeah.
Some other ones, I mean, something from your childhood, sexual violence also causes that. Like I mentioned, not even like carrying your parents' traumas, right? Especially being immigrants to Canada and America, right? They bring a lot of trauma and they don't talk about it. They think if we don't talk about it, it doesn't happen. So it's important to have those difficult conversations, or else we're in the same cycle over and over again.
That makes so much sense. And, when you look outside, of course, if you look back 10, 15, 20 years, yeah, we got into, this world getting into wars. I don't know who's watching and how old you are, folks, but, we saw some major wars, at least in my lifetime, possibly in yours as well, Sheena. The Gulf War, then the Kuwait War, then, oh my God, so many wars. And those wars have had so many people who came out of those wars, moved, immigrated, and they're all across the world. All of these people definitely have that trauma of the war, which we understand. And I grew up in a conflict place myself, so I totally feel that war trauma. But then there's that everyday trauma. You're going into school, you're being bullied for the way you look, the way you smell, the way you walk. That is trauma, right, Sheena? Right? Am I right? Year
Yeah,
on
for sure.
year, your kids or whoever out there, they're accumulating layers and layers and layers of that trauma. And when they get older, they take it with them to their workplace, to their family life, to help us understand that. How do we acknowledge that, yeah, I might have trauma. I might have something that's impacting me.
Yeah, for sure. And even cultural upbringing is huge, right? It's one of the reasons why I wrote the book. Growing up in an Asian household, we're taught one way of living. It's very strict, very conservative. And if we go outside of that, it's considered, we're considered shameful and crazy and all these things. Like mental health wasn't considered. a good thing in Asian culture. It's like if you went to see a mental health therapist, you were deemed as crazy or something was wrong with you, when in fact there was nothing wrong with you. It's just like going to the gym. You need to work on your mental fitness and your physical fitness. So um yeah, in everyday, like getting bullied, right? That can affect you in your later life, right? Especially in the workplace. If you get bullied at work, guess what? You're not going to fight back. You're not going to step up for yourself. You're going to have people walk all over you, all because of that one moment. I'll share one trauma that I've been talking about, is even included in the book, is I failed kindergarten in the Philippines for coloring outside the lines of a photo. And I literally, they gave me a brand new photo to color, and I still failed because I colored outside the lines. And because of that, I failed kindergarten, had to go to another school and redo kindergarten all over again. And because at that time I didn't have the work that I did, on myself, I always thought I was a constant failure. Anything I touched was just a failure. And so I had to work through it. I had to take personal development classes, seminars, talk to the right people in order to realize that I didn't fail for coloring outside the lines. I was just meant to do something different. I was meant to do something outside the norm, outside the lines. And so even something as simple as that can be a traumatic experience.
I love that. How do, so in your book, what are some of the lessons? What are some of the teachings or things that we can now do now that we know, I may have this or that? How do we move forward?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things we have to do for ourselves is learning to love ourselves unconditionally and having a self-care routine, right? I wish they taught these things in school, because this is actually something that we need in the real world. Not that I'm saying science and math is not needed, but we also need like skills that will help us build resilience and being able to succeed in life. And so self-care and self-love is really important. And so I tell people to set a self-care routine. I don't care if it's even 5 minutes of your day, right? We have to start small, have to start somewhere. And so that routine can look different for every single person, because you're different, I'm different. It can be just, going into the bathroom and screaming because you're just so stressed, or watching something, a YouTube video for like 5 minutes, or taking a 10-minute walk, right? Be okay to have that self-care routine, make it a non-negotiable, because it really is important to take care of yourselves, especially as women. We've always been conditioned to take care of everybody else, and we forget the most important person in the world, which is ourselves. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not selfish, it's necessary, right? Especially if you're the type of person who wants to help others. The most important person you need to help first is yourself,
Is
so that
you.
you are able to do that.
Yeah, yeah. I feel, that's so great. The more we talk about mental health, more we talk about, issues that are inside of us, the better it is with the internet, with access to so many different things on our mobile phones. I mean, we're living in a very informed world. We have access to everything. I mean, you can research things and read upon things. And what I see many times happen is that there's way too much research and content, input happening, but people don't take action. People just will stagnate and think and just brood and brew that inside of them and not take action. And I think it's really important to just take that step and say, you know what, I'm going to do something about it, and take a small step. You don't have to create, boil the ocean, but take a small step and figure out, what would that be for you. And that self-care that you're talking about is such a good step. It could be done in many different ways. So your book hit the bestseller lists when it came out. That was incredible. So congratulations on that again. And you've hit multiple bestseller lists. You also have a new book coming out, which is Bridging the Confidence Gap. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so my latest book, which is coming out in May of 2025, is called Bridging the Confidence Gap: How Empowered Women Change the World. And this really stemmed from a report from the World Economic Forum saying that gender parity is going to be achieved at the earliest 2150 in 2154. So that's like 130 years from now. But they've updated that from the time I wrote the book. Now they're saying it's going to be 2158. So it's going to take a little bit longer. And, this confidence gap is something that I've been talking about. Men are generally more confident than women. As if you and I were to go for a promotion, you might be about 60% ready and you'll go for it. Meanwhile, as a woman, I would over prepare and something still holds me back, right? It's like I know that I'm capable, but how I perceive myself, my self-worth, stops me from taking that action. So I want women to realize how capable they are. They're able to tap into their potential to move forward. So, the book talks about different gaps that we face. Of course, as women, we face a lot of biases, we face a lot of gaps. We also, go through a lot of imposter syndrome, right? There's a report saying that 74% of female executives go through imposter syndrome at the workplace, which is huge. And so we have to understand imposter syndrome and why we do that and how we can overcome it. One of the things I'm very passionate about talking on social media is self-promotion because as women, we've been taught that it's tacky and it's not, it's empowering, right? And so I talk about self-promotion, how you can do that, talking about the benefits when we have more women leaders in entrepreneurship, in corporations, and in government, because it not only benefits women, it benefits the whole world. So when we can see these things, just through the research I've done, the writing, the experiences, it's really a book that can help any woman out there realize their potential and move forward. And men too. Men can read it, of course.
Yeah.
So
Very cool. What else do you have as an advice, as a parting advice to anybody watching this summit? And we have 30 different speakers who are talking about very specific topics, really to empower people to become future ready, to think differently, to break through the chains and whatever they're doing. What did you do to be where you are today with your two books, amazing, incredible stuff that you're doing, thought leading, and all of that? What did you do to be there, and how can somebody follow your path?
I think the most important thing, a lot of people like to find what the secret is to success. And in all honesty, you have to be persistent in what you believe in. I totally believe that persistence is the key. If you look at every single successful person in the world, they were persistent as heck,
Yeah,
right? They just made it happen regardless. Like you think of like Thomas Edison, 10,000 ways for a light bulb not to work. You think about J.K. Rowling, how many times she was rejected before she had her Harry Potter like empire. I mean, there's now
yeah,
theme parks, right, all over the world based on Harry Potter. And so I know that's not really an action step, but when it comes to action steps, it's really just be okay to take imperfect action. Like, be okay with that. Know that you're going to make mistakes. You can figure it out along the way. You can correct it. And don't be, just take small steps. You don't have to take big steps, right? I always tell people Rome wasn't built in a day, so you can't expect yourself the same thing. And, if you want an example, it's like if you want to write a book, because I know a lot of people want to write a book, but it's like daunting, right? Just make a goal that you're going to write one page a day for a whole year straight. By the end of that, you're going to have a whole book, or you can even split it into two. So that's the power of doing small daily actionable steps, because it's those daily actionable steps that yield the great results. One of the things I do is I have a tracker that I do where I list all my tasks. And even as I'm doing my tasks, sometimes it feels like nothing's happening, but I keep doing it anyways because I'm putting in the work day in and day out. Like every successful person, they had to put in the work day in and day out, even if they
yeah.
had no clue what was going to happen. They just kept moving forward. So, for me, resilience is very important. Like you have to keep moving forward regardless of the situation, as long as you believe in what you do. Of course, is people will evolve. We're going to want different things, but every successful person I've ever read about or known about, even in my own family, like resistance
Yeah,
is or not resistance, resilience
yeah,
is really.
totally. Thank you so much, Sheena. Where can we find you, and where can our viewers look you up and buy a copy of your book and follow you on social media?
Yeah, for sure. So both books, they're available at Barnes and Nobles, Indigo, Amazon. So the Tao of Self-Confidence is available for order. The Bridging the Confidence Gap is available for pre-order, so you can order it ahead of time. You can connect with me on my website, sheenayapchan.com. You can check, there's a free self-confidence quiz that you can take. And you can connect with me on LinkedIn, which is my favorite social media platform, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. But if you forgot anything I mentioned, just Google Sheena Yap Chan because I'm the only Sheena Yap Chan on the internet.
Amazing. And we also have a description about you and your social media links just underneath the video. So feel free, folks, to follow Sheena and follow her incredible path. Sheena, thank you so much. Can't thank you enough for spending your time here and helping empower so many different people who'll watch this series. So thank you.
Thank you.
All righty.